What was the play they were going to do anyways? The 12 Screams of Christmas. Sounds like a boring play with a bunch of morals and holiday crud in it. Man, poor Mr.Piccolo. He getting snipped again. Jeez, Christmas is gonna be wild this year. Hello and welcome back to Goosebumps HorrorTown playthrough. Tonight, or today, or whatever the video is supposed to be, the typical part 0 of Event 23. This is where I talk about what was going to be the new event coming up. Now, as I kind of hinted at, it's kind of obvious we're at the end of the year. It's obviously going to be Christmas, right? And there's no other weird thing that was posted to us, so I guess we're gonna talk about that real quick, and get this thing out in the open. So no teasers or whatnot, and frankly, I think I might as well go ahead and jump into it. So the event we have gotten this time around is that of the 12 Screams of Christmas. This was an event that was a long time coming. This was something I said way back like 2 years ago or something like that, back in 2018. But finally in the year 2020, we finally got this event here. We spent a whole year memeing up poor Mr. Piccolo, and I think this is time for his event to finally pop in. But he's not alone. He has a few friends with him. But I won't go into depth of that just yet, because we have a few other things to talk about now, don't we? Alright, so let's go ahead and dive into some information based on this book. Now, the long and short of it is that this is actually one of the special Goosebumps Most Wanted series. Now, this series itself was like your typical other Goosebumps books. Now, there are 4 specials in this category. They all have the same kind of backdrop type of deal. What's interesting too is that we actually experienced a special of this kind back in it was in October actually. Trick or Trap was actually another special Most Wanted book. And this time around, we're finally back with another one, back to back. So there's 2 more books to go, Zombie, Halloween, and whatnot. But I digress. So this book is interesting because it's the first official book RL wrote that had the Christmas in it that isn't short stories. And not only that, but the way they actually did this book was interesting. It first starts off with the beginning of setting things up with the Marcus's family, as well as the daughter Flora, and her the story behind that. Basically, she fell down a well, nothing happened, and then a few decades passed, and we get to our main character named Kate. I think Kate, is it? Let me see real quick. Yeah, Kate. So basically, it starts with a prologue back in 1882. Then it goes into December of this year, which I'm guessing it's whatever the year the book was supposed to come out, which in this case would have been 2014. So that happened. So there's like a prologue, a part 1, and then part 2 is the 12 Screams of Christmas. So the 12 Screams, this was because Mr. Piccolo was their teacher, drama teacher, or something like that, and they were like, well, we're going to do this story, and it's going to be this weird, like the concept of the 12 Screams, basically in the concept of, they will scream, and it's kind of silly and stupid, but needless to say, they ended up going to the actual house to kind of get involved, to kind of come into the story. You know what I mean? Like, usually when you ever go and be an actor, you have to get into the role. So in this case, they went to this house of the Marcuses, and they found out that it was haunted by them. And I just remembered, I forgot. Kate has the ability to see ghosts. Yeah, she could see dead people like The Sixth Sense, or my personal favorite, Paranorman. Yeah, so she has that kind of power. And it's a weird book, and I think there's like a happy ending in there. I don't know. Yeah, they're reunited type of thing. So it's a book. It's a story. That's all I can tell you. And yeah, for a Christmas book, it didn't seem very Christmassy, but it was fun nevertheless, and that will be that. Now, one thing I will note is normally around this time I show cover arts of different things, and not a lot of times would you actually see the cover art, because, there's usually different. This time, though, there wasn't actually a different cover art for this particular book, and it was for South Korea. It was actually called Ghosts of Christmas. Looked something like this. Now, it's interesting to see this kind of development because we haven't seen Korea for a while with all this stuff, but I think this is like the first kind of book within this series that actually got into the Korean cover art, but that's about it. Everything else is pretty much the same thing, what we've kind of expected, so that's whatever it is, so, but, yeah, I digress. So, in the long run, that's basically it for the most part, but I mentioned before there are 2 other stories going on. That is because not only is this book covering this main one, but there are 2 short stories getting added to the game. One of them we've seen before, another one is new, but they take the back burner. Basically, I'll go more into depth of the characters in particular, but one thing I'm going to say is that I'm going to give a shout out to a person by the name of Peter. The reason why is, and I pinned this comment, but unfortunately he kind of made a bit of a swear. It's only because they were excited to see something. So, if you remember back in 2018 when I did a thing, they talked about how I think it was like Sugar Cookie Speedway Zone was like sounded like a Sonic thing. Turns out that is the case, and I go in depth in part 1 more in detail with the situation here, but all you need to know is that this is referencing a point horror site. And I think what must have happened was back in 2018, they must have tried to look for information, came across their site, looked at it, and decided to put that in as a little nod to them, because that's what these guys do. So it was a surprise to see them kind of finding out. It's like, well, I've just found out now, and I'm shocked to see they made a little reference to us, because that name just came out of nowhere. And apparently, from what I understand, is all the 10 episodes or 10 stories was referencing a title of if it was a Sonic level. It's interesting. Yeah, so I'll provide a link down below to their site to see the actual full context of it. And I think, check their stuff out, because they're mostly looking at point horror as a series, but they also do a lot of other Goosebumps horror science work, so I don't know, you might find interest in learning about some of the books and their opinions, and they really do some good jobs as far as I've seen it from the briefing of what I've read, but, good work is good work. Anyways, whatever, I'm kind of cluing off here for a bit, so let's go ahead and talk about the update, shall we? A real Christmas tale is here. A holly jolly feeling is surprisingly filling the streets of HorrorTown. Maybe the new girl, Susie Snowflake, has something to do with it? Or is everyone just happy to say goodbye to 2020? One way or the other, seems like Mr.Piccolo will get his chance to make the 12 Screams of Christmas happen after all. Too bad he chose Marcus Mansion as the location. So, yes, you heard that right. Susie Snowflake is in the game. Ooh, boy. This is an interesting character indeed, and there's a lot to talk about, so I am going to now talk briefly of what this update brought to the game now, and we'll go from there. So this was the 3rd Christmas special themed update we have in this game so far. It is based off the book 12 Screams of Christmas, and there is a grand prize for the decoration of the book, which is the Ghostly Partners. I talked more about that and I think the Crafting 101 in this video, so check that out. They've actually added some things into the game, like for example the Forbidden Bunk has now been added to the game. It will explain a little bit more in the future video, but all you need to know is they're adding kind of contents in there. there are 3 new characters introduced. 1 of them freemium, 2 of them premium. Now, the freemium that you're going to get is Mr. Piccolo. Now, this is a given, and he kind of looks suspicious here, but his design is somewhat interesting. A lot of players have decided to give reference of what they are referencing to. I have my theories on what I think it is, but yeah, they made him a very interesting character as far as design goes, and I think I'm going to have fun trying to find a voice for him as far as anything concerned. So, in this update, he was worth 8.4 or 8,400 of the currency, which in this case looks like haunted candles. It looks kind of cool, the design for these things, because it has this weird skull fire going on, like a Ghost Rider type of thing, but the candlestick, it's kind of very like Christmas Carol-y, doesn't it? But I digress. So, there are also 2 other characters introduced. One of them is Mr. Marcus, who is our ghost with the most. You couldn't have a Marcus building without a Marcus character, and that is our guy. He is our first premium character. He's going to be worth 500 of the Goosebucks when he was introduced in the game. And there was also another, there are also 2 of the twins in the game, but they don't have official posts, and they're only kind of like a spawn monster in the scene, so I'll go more in depth with them during the parts, so don't worry about that. But yeah, let's talk about that. Susie Snowflake, yeah, so she's in the game now, and she's official, and her story and backstory is quite interesting, and oh, I can't wait to have fun with her. Unfortunately, she's worth 700 of the Goosebucks, sadly, and yeah, that's the only downside to that. That sucks, but oh well, you can't always win, right? It is what it is. Now, one thing I wanted to state too is you may have noticed that I mentioned there's 2 books. Now, it's obviously the first one being Holly Jolly Nightmare, or Holly Jolly Christmas, what the book was, basically with Susie Snowflake in it, which was a tale we've seen before back in the Attack of the Christmas Presents. But I mentioned there's another special book coming in. Well, this is because one of the scenes that are getting introduced are the Gronks. And if you don't know what the Gronks are, they're from a story called Please Don't Sit on the Gronks. They are, like Susie, adorable, and I cannot wait to show them off to you, because, my god, these little things are just, I don't know, they're something else entirely. And, oh boy, this is gonna be one of those fun episodes, so I'm really glad to end this off on a high note in particular, but, yeah, this is going to be fun indeed for everybody. Alright, so there's about that. There's not much else when it comes to other information besides, like, you know, new zones opening up, Curly and other characters getting new scene items and whatnot. But I believe we should now talk about special books that have been added to the game, because it's like, wow, wonder what they've added in this game particularly for a special book offer. Well, would you know it, they added 2 new books. Do you want to give a guess on what they are? Well, they are that of the Attack of the Christmas Presents and Shop Till You Drop Dead. Oh boy, do I have a special place for Shop Till You Drop Dead, because that was my event, and it's going to be great to relive that one more time. And yeah, a lot of stuff to talk about there. I will also be redoing most of the Attack of the Christmas Present. Now, something I'll mention here is what's interesting with the Attack of the Christmas Present is that video is going to be a little bit longer as well. It's going to be about 2 parts. The Shop Till You Drop Dead, I think I could do 1 video, but we'll have to see how editing works. But yeah, quite frankly, it's going to be a lengthy video to talk all this stuff, and I can't wait to show you what we have in store. So, what do you think on this update question thing? Well, at any rate, I'm happy to be finally done with this at the moment, and I cannot wait to go into the game to finally start doing this with you, as everything can be, you know, all that stuff and more. So, until then, I've been Grim, and I'll be seeing you next time with Goosebumps HorrorTown playthrough God for Us. So until then, have a holly jolly Christmas. It's the best time of the year. Oh, by golly, have a holly jolly Christmas this year.